Hi, this is Jeff with Radical Honesty, and today I'm going to start on a new subject matter, and it's a very, very important one, and very sensitive one, and a very emotional one. It's on the topic of suicide. Does your faith in Christ, can it help you in your emotions, This is a really difficult question because oftentimes we think of church as like you're doing a lot of stuff, you're attending a lot of things. And if you're a minister, you're giving out over and over again to people. And oftentimes you run on empty. But does Christ deal with your inner person? Can it bring you joy? Now, I got to tell you that in my years of ministry, I've known 4 people who were in the ministry or were formerly in the ministry who took their own lives, okay? And it's really sad. It's not just, why do people who don't know Christ, take their lives? It's people who do know Christ and people who actually serve knowing Christ who can do this thing. Well, in order to give an answer to this question, I'm going to have to talk about one, how can Christ help us in the inner being to sort of bring us joy in the midst of suffering? Second, I got to deal with the issue of, why can a believer, take their own lives? And 3, why does this happen if God is so mighty, okay, and so loving? Why does that happen to believers that you may know and even people who are leaders, okay? Now, in order to answer this question, we have to really go to a central book in the New Testament that talks about joy. And that, of course, is the epistle to the Philippians. Here, Paul is in prison, but in this epistle, one of the main themes, if not the major theme, is the concept of joy. Paul is a very joyous person in his persecution and his imprisonment. And he wants to have the Philippian believers share in this joy and grow in this joy. So this is where we'll begin. I don't know how many messages I'm going to give, okay? It could be 5, it could be 7, it could be 3, I'm not sure, okay? But we're going to begin with almost like chapter by chapter in Philippians, because without this, you will not get a good a foundation of joy from the New Testament perspective, okay? Now we're here in chapter 1, and here I'm going to read verse 3. I thank my God in all my remembrance of you, always in every prayer of mine, for you, all making my prayer with joy because of your partnership in the gospel from the first day until now. Go to a few more verses in chapter 1, and where am I? I'm in verse 18, yes, I will rejoice, for I know that through your prayers and the help of the Spirit of Jesus Christ will turn out for my deliverance. Okay. Now, there's going to be many sort of very helpful things in terms of bringing joy in our lives. I'm not going to talking about like how to get joy, whether you're a believer or not, okay? This is not the issue. This is not the purpose of radical honesty. It's really a very spiritual perspective. So it's joy with a very Christian and faith sort of source to it. Now, with this understanding, these verses that I have read talks about a very, very practical way in which the Apostle Paul gets joy in the midst of his suffering, his imprisonment. It's the participation or the support or the prayers of these Philippian believers to Paul. This is really important because Paul's not sort of like, I'm not suffering, because anyone who follows Jesus and follows correctly doesn't suffer. So you don't really need to pray for you. You don't really need to help me. That's not true. The Apostle Paul always is open to share the burdens that he has in his life, be it like maybe they're helping him financially, okay, maybe they're writing letters of encouragement. Of course, they're praying for him. Now, how does this really hit home in terms of applying this in our lives? Maybe you deal with sadness. Maybe you deal with being despondent, or you feel really like you're at the end of your rope, okay? Here's the first point that I want to bring from Philippians chapter 1. The Apostle Paul was able to share his sort of need and sort of distress with other people. He was not faking it. And one of the beginning sort of steps that you can take if you're despondent is not to put on this face that everything is okay, while really in the inner being you're melting away and sort of disintegrating within. Oftentimes Christianity sort of leads to that, because you think that, if I'm a follower of Jesus, it solves all my problems, and I should be really happy. And then for ministers, you serve and serve and serve. You're supposed to be like, I'm supposed to be an example to people, Then you got people who could help all these people in life, homeless people, people who are poor. But then when it comes to their family, it comes to themselves, they can't help themselves. There's a problem with that, because the real inner sort of tension and anguish that we all have as believers in Jesus Christ, you can't get rid of it by just helping people. You got to share your distress with other people and allow them to help you whatever way they can. So here's my application. If you're sad or despondent or ministering to someone, share your distress with others. And if you are a friend at helping someone who is very, very distraught, do what you can to aid them and pray for them and to help them at this time. Because if you just hide what's really feeling inside, you're not going to do yourself any favor in terms of letting the love of Jesus Christ and the fellowship of other believers help you through this time.